Welcome to the Hardcore MBA Podcast with your host, Erlend, Bakke.
Okay, welcome everybody to this latest edition of the Hardcore MBA. I'm delighted to be joined by two fine gentlemen, goes by the name of Erlend Bakke and Steve Shoulder, the co-authors of the new book, 90 Days to Profit. You guys know Erlend already, and he has co-authored this book with Steve. And we are going to dive in to what this book is about. We're going to introduce the two authors, why they wrote this book, and just the journey it's taken them on. As a writer myself, I know the trials and tribulations that a book brings. So there are some stories to be shared, but I'm sure. So Erlend, Steve, hello, welcome. How are you both?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Matt.
Great to hear. So we're going to go straight in, and Steve, I'm going to focus on you first and foremost. I'm sure Erlend's got some wise words to touch upon in time, but Steve, just please tell us a little bit about yourself and the job you've been doing for the last 20 plus years. Those listening and watching, they probably know Erlend already. He's been around the block a few times on this podcast. But you, Steve, you're the newbie. So please, who are you and what kind of work have you been doing for this 20 plus years? You are an experienced man indeed.
Yeah, for the last 21 years, I've been acting as an interim manager, usually at a very senior level in the business, typically ops director or MD. And I usually go into businesses that are either struggling, they could be businesses that are close to the brink, but they could also be businesses that want to grow substantially. But in any case, they have some reason to reposition themselves, either be it you're pulling back from the brink or you're wanting to create more profits, or taking advantage of a market opportunity. I generally go into those businesses when the businesses themselves have run out of ideas and resources, and then it's time to get Steve on the phone.
Excellent. So what kind of companies have you worked with over time? I know you've got quite a long list, a fantastic portfolio. We're talking about small and medium-sized companies here, the big boys.
It's a real mixture, Matthew. I've got people like BMW on my list of clients, which is massive companies, But I've also worked with small family-run businesses, so it's and a lot of things in between. Typically, my sweet spot is what you would call the medium to large enterprises, sort of £100 million, which is that's kind of where I do a lot of my work. But there's no limitations on this. The methodology that I use to transform and turn around businesses can be applied in lots of different situations, large or small.
Well, I'm glad you brought up methodology there, because that leads us nicely into the book itself. The book is based on largely your methodology. There we go. Erlend's showing it there. 90 Days to Profit.
I'm just going to do the whole interview like this, Matt. I'm just going to do like this. So it's kind of like the book has hands.
I can just see you now walking around Oslo. That's strapped to your head for the next year.
Launch week, I'm taping one on the front, one on the back.
Nice.
That'll be me.
Advertising to the extreme.
Good luck.
I mean, it's been a fantastic journey. I'm obviously quite new to this industry, but it's been a joy to be part of it and to learn what you do on the book. So it's a great thing that you've brought up methodology there, because that is what the book is all about. So I'd like you both to now kind of go into it, starting with Steve, to just share the bare essentials of what the book is. Like, what is it all about? What is 90 Days to Profit?
Well, it's kind of about the journey that I've taken in my my life as a transformation sort of a specialist. And the 90 Days to Profit refers to being able to take a business from a track that it's on, if you like, which is heading to a dark place, and putting it onto another track that is taking it to a much more profitable place, shall we say. Now, sometimes you can transform a business literally from loss to profit in 90 days, and I've actually done it. I've done it a number of times. But quite often, what you can do is get the business onto a new track, which is leading towards profit. But it might take a bit longer than 90 days. But that's the reference to the 90 days in the book.
And there's these kind of 7 stages, these 7 steps that form the formula. There we go, Erlend's showing it up there. So just briefly, we don't want to dive into the entire book, but can you just give us a bit more information about this formula, this structure?
Yeah, well, firstly, I must give Erlend the credit for coming up with that graphic, because I do not have a creative bone in my body. So he's the one that's responsible for that. But the 7-step process is something which I've developed over the last 20 years. It started off quite rough and ready. The steps were always there, but they were kind of loose at the beginning. And they didn't have the same kind of rigor and structure that they do now. But over the years, I've fine-tuned what I do, and I've learned what works and what doesn't work. And some of it is quite subtle, and there are definitely skills that you need to have at each one of those steps to make them work as well as they could possibly work. But basically, it's a structured methodology to work through a transformation exercise in a business, which takes you firstly from identifying what the problem is, through to looking at and reviewing the data. It identifies opportunities and then narrows down the focus into just one thing. What I found over the years is that if you try and do too many things, you do nothing. It's so easy to get sucked into fixing this and fixing that and fixing that, because in every business there are always 500 things to fix. What you have to do is be very, very focused and fix one thing. And when you get down to the creative part of this process, you end up fixing it with one thing. So you have one problem and you have one solution. If you try and do any more than that, to be honest, you end up going around in circles. So it's a method to get you really, really, really sharply focused on what it is you're going to fix and what it is you're going to fix it with. And then there's an implementation phase and a testing and rolling out. So it's a properly robust, fully sort of functioning, structured process.
And I think one way to think of it is the Pareto principle, which is basically 20% of your business delivers 80% of the results. And a lot of people know about this principle, but what is the actual process of actually getting the sort of results that you want, and the methodology that Steve has developed is in effect like a very simple way of achieving that. There's lots of books that talk about the Pareto principle, but until now I haven't seen anywhere where follow these steps and then you get that result. So that's one of the things that I really like about 90 Days to Profit.
It's fascinating indeed, and I'm before we get into who the book is for and how it's going to help them, I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts now, Erlend, because to an extent you're a bit of an outsider. This is a relatively new industry to you too. You brought a great deal to the table in terms of creativity, but I imagine just looking at things with an outsider perspective, where you're able to create this profits formula. So what was it like for you personally to come on board of this, learn something new, and to be able to take this framework to the next level and to make it a bit more approachable and attainable for those reading?
Yeah, so I think just first of all to clarify, Steve, when you said small family-run businesses, what kind of turnover size are we talking about?
I think the one that I was referring to was about 30 million, something like that. So it's a reasonable size business. It's not tiny. But it has to have, as long as there are people and there are processes and there is an end result, such as a product or a service, you can apply this process to anything.
Right. So the reason I'm saying that is because when people say, when you said small business, people think like, oh, it's probably like 1 to 5 people, right? Like maybe £1 million turnover. But small in this context is 30 million, and it's a sizable business. So it's been a very interesting process for me, and I'd like to talk a little bit about why I wanted to do the book and why I think it's important. So first of all, small business is one thing, being a business owner is another, and understanding big business and how to fix things there is something that I've been interested in for a very long time. So I got to know Steve, and he said, I've got this process, but I'm not quite sure how to best package it into an information product that I can sell to the world. And that's when I started getting excited about the book and the potential for the product. And so my job in this was I sort of have the information marketing background with the book and the webinar and the seminar, and the coaching and that element of it. And then Steve has, the insights and the knowledge. So my job in all this was really teasing out the learning points and working on the branding and working on sort of, for instance, the book isn't sort of a textbook type book. It's a story of a person called Ralph Hill, who loses his job in a depression, but also because he wants to apply interesting things to the business he's in. Management find him intimidating, fires him. He struggles to get a job. One day, though, he meets an old colleague at a petrol station, and he's got the fancy car and a nice watch and looks really good and is doing very well for himself. And Ralph Hill then asks the other character, Sam, like, what are you doing with your life? And that's kind of how the story starts. So in many ways it's a transformation of the main character's life, as well as the learning of the process of turning around the business. So it's very interesting from a sort of business perspective, but also from a personal perspective. And we've got a lot of cool things in there as well. Lots of interesting characters, and the way it's structured is the lessons and the learnings of the real case scenarios are from Steve's 20+ year career. But the reason why we've used a story, and the reason why you use stories in books is they're far more engaging. They really pull you in. If it's like a dry textbook kind of thing, you kind of fall asleep a little bit. So we've created a story around it. It's very easy to read, and it's based in sort of a relevant context. There was a book in the sort of 70s called The Goal, written by Goldrat. He's a rat for gold, obviously. But this is like a modern version of it. And I'm really proud of it. We tested 25 covers. If you are on my email list, you know that we sent out the 25 covers to you guys, and you voted for which one you would want to buy. And we also did the same sort of process in terms of the name of the book. So very much about this book is something that we've tested and tried. The book is going live on the 25th of April as well. If you want it free. If you're watching this after 25th of April, then it's available on Amazon all over the world. And that's the only place we're going to publish it as well.
I just want to quickly touch upon this narrative and this story. Like, whose idea was that? Because I love this bridge of basically you're combining fiction and non-fiction together, and it's a great approach, because even the best non-fiction books in the world, the best business books in the world, can come across a bit stale and a bit, stuck in the mud. So you've literally brought this book alive. So come on, own up to it. Whose great idea was this?
Well, I can't even remember who that was.
Well, or is it very much a combined effort? Are we going to play the political cards?
I think it's very much a combined effort. I think there's something magical that happens when you work with other people. You can only. I usually use the example of the horse pulling in the U.S. So in the U.S. you have horse pulling competitions, and the winner pulled something like 7,000 tons, and the second one. The horse that came in second place pulled 6,000 tons, and the question is then how much do you think they pulled together? And the answer isn't double; it is 2 to 3 times more. So than they logically should have done. So that, I think, like, collaboration in business is key, and that's when the great ideas come along. And Steve, how do you work in teams when you go through this process?
Yeah, well, teamwork is absolutely fundamental to this process, Erlend, as you know. When you go into a business, there are always people that know what's wrong, and there are always people that know what needs to be done to put it right. But they very, very often don't have either the forum or the voice in the business to be able to do that. And what I like to do is to create informal teams, people that want to be in the team. People that have something to bring to it, and something to be they want to be part of the solution. And I use informal teams in businesses everywhere I go. I think it's just it's a fantastic thing to do. And quite often, as you've just mentioned there, what's the saying? The total is greater than the sum of the parts. I find that all the time.
Yeah.
And maybe
Absolutely.
also sometimes the best ideas do come from people that are not the leaders, right? They come from.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, quite often it's really great to have a skeptic in the team, because the whole business will know that this person is a skeptic, and their view would be, well, if you can convince fill in the blank, then it must be a great idea. So I quite often like to have that skeptical person in the team, because it's not only a challenge, but it's a good marker for whether you're getting it right or not.
That's good. And one of the great things about a team dynamic is I always find if you're working on your own, or if you come in with a very closed mind, you get stuck in your own way. Basically, you lose yourself within yourself. But if you've got a team, there's going to be different personalities, different ideas. And that is usually when good turns to great, because very few people, if anyone, is capable of greatness on their own. It takes a team, and it takes a combined effort to turn something into a shining star, if you will.
No, that's very true, Matthew. I think one of the things that I've experienced many times is that when you have an environment where people feel safe, they feel relaxed, they feel like that they can make their contribution in a low risk environment. They're not going to be made to look a fool, and it's not going to reflect badly on them. If you can create that atmosphere, then lots of good stuff can come out of that. And quite often somebody will say something in a forum like that, which at first hearing, it sounds ridiculous, it sounds crazy. Then you think, do you know what? There's maybe if we combine that with this and that, maybe there's a solution here. And some of the best solutions come out of the random comments and the crazy comments that people make in those team environments.
Indeed. I mean, I certainly live by that belief, and I've seen it in action myself. I'm sure you have on many different levels. So, I mean, let's cut to the point here. We've got a new book coming out. So, who is this book for? Who should read the 90 Days to Profit? Who's it for?
Well, my idea of the ideal reader it varies from time to time, but anyone that has a desire to transform a business for whatever reason, whether they be a consultant or an aspiring consultant, whether they be a manager, senior manager, business owner, there are lots and lots of people that could benefit from this methodology in the book. It's basically anyone that has that desire to follow a structured process to take a business to a better place. And the beauty of this is it's scalable. It's applicable to lots and lots of different situations. It's easy to understand, and I think that is a very, very important point. When you explain this to people, you explain the graphic. People get it in about 30 seconds. Yeah, and that is one of the real strengths of this process, because typically, and I'm sure you know this, Matthew, a business is in trouble. They call in one of the big six consultants. They get the guys in the black suits that come in, blind everybody with science, charge them huge fees, stay there for 6 months, make a fortune, and leave the business marginally better off. That's not what this is about. This is about giving people a properly thought out, well-proven process that they can understand themselves. Yeah, and they can, and I would say this genuinely, anyone can follow this process in a business. And if they follow the steps and they just do it bit by bit, they will get the result for the business. They will take the business to a better place. Of course, the more expert you are at doing that, the better the result would be.
Of course. So whether you're a consultant like yourself looking to go into different businesses and, present this framework, or whether you're the person within the business and maybe you're an executive or maybe you're the business owner, it works both ways. It works as both consultancy level, but also from an in-house level.
Absolutely. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, that the beauty of it is that this process itself is very, very simple to understand. Yeah. It's not something which is intricate and sophisticated. There are skills, clearly. There are skills and there are rules about how you apply it. But once you understand that, you can just apply it. And because I think once you understand it and you have that inner confidence, well, yeah, this is something I can do, you're prepared to try it. It's not something where you're going to get bogged down and got to keep referring to the textbook. It is simple to understand and it's simple to follow.
And I know Erlend, and as someone who's read his previous books, I know that he's very hands-on and he's all about applying, those lessons. So I imagine there's a great deal of resources and frameworks and exercises and worksheets that come alongside of this book to actually help you apply what you're learning step by step. Am I right?
Absolutely. So we have recorded an in-depth interview with Steve about every single step in the process. There's also PDFs in the same area, so worksheets that you can use to apply this in your own business or somebody else's business. And you go to 90daystoprofit.co.uk/bonus. That's where all the book bonuses are. You sign up there and then you get all these videos sent over a sort of 9 to 10 day period. So that's the bonus material that we have to accompany the book.
I've personally been engrossed in this video series recently. It's fantastic. Like I say, this is still very much a new sort of realm for me. But it's like you said, Steve, within minutes, I got the framework. I understood it, stood out to me, and I see how it applies. And that's where I find the most genius of frameworks come when they're simple, where you can pick it up within minutes. It seems so obvious and so simple, but I suppose the real magic is in the detail and actually putting forth the right step and making sure you don't take the wrong step. And this is what the book and all the various resources come. They help make sure you make the right decision at the right time so you can progress to the next step, into the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, Matthew, in between each of the process steps, there are what I call hurdles. So you don't progress to step 2 until you've finished step 1 and you've actually crossed that hurdle. Now, the hurdles are not meant to trip you up. They're meant to make sure that you're doing it thoroughly and correctly. Yeah. So, for example, you wouldn't, and I kind of use this analogy a number of times, but in a military setting, you're given a mission. You're the Mission Impossible guy. You're given a mission. Would you just jump into your tank and head off into the desert to fix something? No, you wouldn't. You'd absolutely be certain you know what you're doing before you do it. Yeah. So the first part is before you move on to step 2, you absolutely establish what problem it is that you're going to fix, and then you communicate that problem to the relevant people within the organization, and you say, "This is what we're going to fix. Are we good to go?" "Yes, you are." "Great. Now we communicate out to the wider business. This is what we're going to do, and now we move to step 2. You don't get the cart before the horse. You get it done in a proper sequence.
Absolutely. I'm a great believer of structure. I love it. I have a lot of structure in my life, and it helps you get to where you want to be. It helps you get from where you are to where you want to be, and that works in both life and in business, time and time again. Now, the book is pretty much upon us. It's there. We've seen it. Erlend has held it up. I've actually got my copies somewhere close to hand. There it is, Erlend. So what happens next? I mean, I know as an author too that when you hit publish, that it marks day 0. It ends one chapter, the writing and the editing and all of that malarkey, which is, tough in its own right. But then it marks a new chapter, marketing, selling, promoting, and all the various things that come after the book. So what can we expect from the two of you over the next couple of months?
So there will be a webinar on the 3rd of May, which if you are on this email list, my email list at the moment, you will be getting an invitation to join that webinar, where we'll be going even more in depth into each of those steps. Steve is going to be the one training on the webinar. It is free to attend, and then on the 20th of May, we're doing a live seminar in the UK. And that is a paid event, but we will send out information about that. And those are the things that we have lined up in relation to the launch. Of course, we're looking to get this into as many hands as possible. If you're on the email list, there will be a link underneath where you can actually get the first 3 chapters for free to check those out pre-launch. So that's before it goes live on Amazon as a teaser for you just to get a sample. And then on the 25th of April, the book is going to be free on Amazon. And if you don't get it on the 25th, then it will be paid from then on going forwards. We're also launching the Kindle version, we're launching the paperback version, and we're launching the audiobook as well, all on the same date. So we're going to be able, you'll be able to get us in any format you would like.
I love it. And what I really love that you guys are doing is, because I hate when an author just puts a book up on Amazon. I see it all the time, right? Is they have a good idea, they put all their thought into the book, they put it on Amazon, and they just expect it to work, become that bestseller. And there's nothing wrong with being a thoroughbred author. Like, there's people who do it, and there's people who do it very well. But I find the ones who get the most out of the experience, not just them personally as an author, but the audience behind the book, are those who create an entire ecosystem around the book. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. We've already sort of been talking about it recently, things like Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups. You're trying to build an ecosystem around this book because it is a rather untapped niche, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say so, Matthew. I think that there are lots of people out there that would really like to have this information, but there's no one source where you could go to and just and tap into it. That's really what we're trying to create here, I like the term ecosystem. I think this could start to grow and develop in lots of ways that we haven't even thought of yet.
Oh, absolutely. So I mean, if you're listening to this or watching this right now and you've been curious about what's been said and it's piqued your interest, know that you're not just going to be given a book and then left to your own devices. There's going to be a community, there's going to be this ecosystem designed to help you take things to the next level and then the next level. And you've got this guy in Steve who's got all the experience in the world, basically holding your hand along the way. And Erlend sharing his most practical of all knowledge when it comes to information products. He is the guy in the know. So I personally feel very safe in the hands of you two, and I'm sure those watching and listening will too. Now, I just want to touch upon one other thing, and then I'm hoping Steve can just give us a very quick overview story, a bit of a case study example, if you will, in terms of this being in action. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to think about a bit of a story, a bit of an example you can share with us, a quick elevator pitch, if you will, on the case study. But Erlend, you're a good guy when it comes to marketing and selling, so I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Why should people buy and read this book? Like, what is its big UVP? There are so many books out there, so many resources. In a nutshell, why should people choose 90 Days to Profit?
Okay. Well, first of all, turnover is vanity, profit is sanity. Okay, you can hear about these businesses, they're turning over lots and lots of money, but what is the profit? Like, how much money is left on the table, right? And that is what you need to have to significantly keep on growing your business going forwards, right? You can be a well-funded startup, you can be a multi-billion-dollar company, but if your profit is 0.0001%, you're nearly going bankrupt, and you're living on day to day. So this is a process that you should be reading if your business is struggling, but also if your business is going good, because one of the principles is that's mentioned in the book is Kaizen. So you constantly want to be refining and improving and consistently be going through the process in the book. And what we've done is, as Steve said earlier in the interview, you know, in any given day you have like 5 million things you want to do, right? There's a lot of, especially if you're an entrepreneur or sort of a positive opportunist, then there's also shiny objects. Now, what kind of things should you be working on, right? And I truly believe that this 7-step process helps you get clear, stay clear, and follow through to the end. So in other ways, surf the wave all the way to the beach. And once you've successfully done that and you've significantly improved your business, then you can go out there, you can catch another wave with the same process. So I think one thing is the simplicity and the step-by-step process that anyone can do with what is in the book 90 Days to Profit.
And I love it. And it sums things up. It's whether, if you're a consultant and this is already your bread and butter, you're going to learn a lot from this. If you're the inspiring consultant who wants to take things to the next level, you're going to learn a lot from this. Or if you're the person already in the business and you want to make it work for your business, be you an executive or the owner, this is a book that's going to help you. So I think you summed it up fantastic there, Erlend. Just tell us again where people can learn about 90 Days to Profit.
Okay, so you go to 90daystoprofit.co.uk. That's the place to go.
And then if it's after the 25th of April, just search for 90 Days to Profit on Amazon. You'll be able to get it in Kindle, paperback, and many other forms. But check out the website. There's other resources
any of our
too.
names. Well.
Indeed, any of the name, Erlend Bakke, Steve Shoulder, and the website has more information about both authors, as well as lots of other resources. So you need to check it out, guys. That's basically the thing. So you've had a couple of minutes, Steve. Like, I want to hear about this in practice, just in a few minutes. Like, you've gone into a company, you've worked for dozens over the years, and you've taken people from, you know, zero to profit. You've taken people from profit to more profit. Tell us a tale. Share a story with us.
Interesting. Well, there are so many, and I might add that the story in the book is well, there are real people in there. Some of those people exist. So I shan't be naming any names to protect the innocent, or even
are you going to send them a copy
guilty.
of the book, Steve? Or are you sending them a copy of the book?
I might do. I've got a sense of humor as well as anything else. But let me give you one example. Some years ago, there was a company that I was asked to go into that had an opportunity to make massive profits in a very short time. This is a company in the fiber optic cable industry. And at the time, I had no knowledge of that industry. I hadn't been in cables at all. But as you find from my background, I've actually been in 20 different industries now and made an impact in them all. But that's something which I've learned to do.
Same process.
But this particular
different businesses.
Yeah, exactly.
Same process.
Yeah, exactly that. So this particular company, they had a situation where the cable installers and users were putting cable into the ground at an unprecedented rate, to the extent where they actually had to ration their customers as to how many products they could sell, which is a crazy situation to be in. But they couldn't make the cables quickly enough. They had a production facility there that was, relatively modern, and as far as cable factories go, it was performing reasonably well. But they had an opportunity to double, treble, quadruple the size of the business in 1 year if they could get this right. So I applied this process in that particular business, and there were some fantastic people there that I'm still very good friends with now, even many years later. And we worked through the process, and we identified lots of hidden gems as we went through the process. To cut a long story short, Matthew, we added 12 people into the business, and the business was around about 160 people when we started, so we added about 12 people in. We didn't invest any money in any equipment. We just simply found the way to get it planned properly, to make it flow properly, to focus on the bits that mattered in every part of the process, so that we weren't missing any opportunities to get output. And there were certain little techniques that we used, manufacturing techniques that we used, and worked with some very, very good engineers to get the process right. But at the end of all that, we actually managed to quadruple the size of the business in 1 year.
Wow.
So we went from 38 million pounds turnover to 160 million pounds turnover in 1 year. And we took the net profit from 1 million pounds to 35 million pounds in the same time frame. So, I mean, by anybody's measure, it was a spectacular result. And that's the kind of thing that you can do using this process.
Simplicity in its finest. One problem, one solution.
You get that.
Although I should say we can't promise 35 million.
Can't promise 35 million.
You
got to do the work yourself, unless you hire one of us.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I think this has been a fantastic interview. It's been great to dive more into not just the book, but the process behind the book, and to learn more about both of your experiences. I imagine it's been an interesting ride throughout, lots of ups, lots of downs, no doubt, as writing any book does. And when you combine two authors, there's always going to be some things happen. So it's so good to see this come to light. And like we said, this is an untapped market. This is something that I see so much potential in. And I can't wait to see not just the book expand, but the entire ecosystem behind it. So any closing remarks from the pair of you on what those listening and watching should do, and how they can become a reader of a book?
Steve?
Yeah, well, we've got a book launch, which is happening at the Institute of Directors on the 25th of April. And that's open to some selected guests. We have about 80 people coming to that. And these are people of influence in lots of different industries. So that's going to be very good for us. We're also launching the book on the 25th of April on the website on the same day. So this is going to be something which is going to be out there in the world very, very shortly. And my advice would be, firstly, buy the book, read the book. If you're interested in learning more, then there's lots of resources that we have for you.
And then on the 3rd of May, we got the webinar. 20th of May, we have the seminar coming up. So, and after that, we will set up more. But that is the initial launch. That's what we've planned for the launch. And I believe this will be a book that a lot of people will hold up and say, read this book. Just like The Goal is a book that people say, read that book, and it has been for the last sort of 34 years. Our hope for this book is that it gets to the same place, and in 40 years people are still talking about 90 Days to Profit and the 7-step methodology that we have developed in there.
It begins here, guys and girls. It begins here. Head to 90daystoprofit.co.uk. Get yourself signed up to the bonuses. You will be kept in the loop when we do future webinars and seminars and everything like that. So get signed up. It's been an absolute pleasure, guys. You've been listening to three authors, Erlend Bakke, Steve Shoulder, and myself, Matthew Turner. Head to 90daystoprofit.co.uk for more information about those two and the book. And then you can also learn more about the three of us and everything else that's going on at Hardcore MBA. So there you go. Thank you. Have a great one.
This podcast is brought to you by MrOutsource.com. Outsourcing to the Philippines done for you. Mr. Outsource is a recruitment company matching busy entrepreneurs with Filipino virtual assistants, so you can have the time to focus on what's important.